Hello, hello. So do you know what that musical phrase was from? If you do, please consider to write it down in the comment section, and you might actually win a piece or two of your choice from KOR publications. This is a little thank you for the support all of you guys have given me throughout the years. We just passed 1 million views by now, so this is a little thank you for that. But this video, mainly what I wanted to do actually was to answer some YouTube questions, and also actually just to show some random crazy effects that no one will ever need. So yeah, let's just go straight into it maybe. Let's start with a totally random fun fact. Did you know that actually the bassoon theoretically goes down to a B natural and not a B flat? What do I mean by that? So if you play the lowest notes on your instrument, right? The lowest fifth, that starts on a B flat. And if you do the same, just articulate it, but on the reed, you can still hear those pitches. Huh? If you do the same, you play the same notes, but without the reed, it sounds half a step up. That shows basically that the instrument is half a step lower thanks to the reed itself. Random fun fact. Next up is to answer a question here. Someone asks why I don't use a balance hanger on the bassoon while I play. And well, I did actually use a balance hanger for I think 5 years or so. And there are many pros with it, but eventually I took it off. But I can show the one I have here first, because it's quite a special balance hanger. It's of course something weird and special with it. It's not a normal one, of course. But the thing is, you know, with a normal one you just attach it, and yeah, it lifts up the instrument a little bit and removes a little bit of weight off the bassoon on the left hands especially. But this one is huge. It's much bigger, and it has this weird long extension on there. What that does is that when you attach it then actually you don't need to hold the instrument for the instrument to basically just float in a way. I will do a shortcut, put this on and show you what I mean. So now I took the balance hanger on, weird and huge looking, and so now I can show you what I mean. Is that actually if I let go of the bassoon now, the bassoon is horizontal, right? So I don't actually need to lift it in a way. So the idea is good, but one thing is I'm personally using a Sabatini when I play while I stand, and for this to actually be pulled up now, I would need to adjust the whole thing. And because as you can see right now, this makes absolutely no sense, and I have pulled the strap here all the way up and it's way too low. And if I get it even higher like this, then I don't know if you can see that very clear, but if you look on this hand, especially this shoulder, it becomes more and more like this. So I got quite a lot of actually shoulder pain and back pain because of that. So that is why I personally took it off. And then I rather have the bassoon a little bit more actually vertical while I play. So in a way, gravity is also helping there. So I'm not really lifting the bassoon up with my left hand, I'm rather pushing it down with the right. Next up, totally useless effect, but quite fun thing to know. Actually, since I made this Star Wars lightsaber effect video, I've gotten some comments if I have other weird stuff like that to show. So here is one of those. Maybe this sounds something like a balalaika or like some kind of tremolo effect. It doesn't work on very many notes, but it works on these. And probably on the octave above as well. So then you wonder maybe, what was it? Maybe you think it has something to do with the tonguing, has something to do with the air, something to do with the lips or whatever. It has nothing to do with that. Play your C and the D, and over the B natural tone hole, you go back and forth like that really quickly. Then you get a kind of a tremolo effect. Of course, incredibly useful, and you will need it absolutely every day. Next up is actually a question regarding bassoonists that I think everyone should know about, or historical figures and blah blah blah. This would actually be a very, very long list, and it's very difficult to actually mention a handful. So I would either then mention, I don't know, 100 names, or I would mention 3 or less. And of course, if you mention 3 or less, there are always people that will come in the shadow. So it's very touchy topic. But I think, at least considering for us who doesn't maybe play historical bassoons, but we play modern bassoons as of today, then we really need to thank Carl Almenreder, who worked together with Heckel to actually develop the bassoon or the German fagot into what it more or less is today. So if I would just need to mention one name, I think I would mention him. And also considering he did compose a bit, maybe not the best composer ever, but what's impressive also with his compositions is the range that he has in his bassoon pieces. You know, he's going up to the high C, like 1 octave above the right of spring C. So if I would just mention one name, at least for us who plays in the modern system bassoons, Carl Almenreder is a person to check out for sure. There's another question here regarding flat or round grip. We're now talking about the fingers, if to have this kind of, you know, holding a tennis ball kind of grip, or more like the flat version. Cons and pros with different ones. I actually started to play the bassoon with flat grip. Main reason was because my fingers were actually not long enough to reach the big bassoon right after I had the fagotino. So I simply didn't have a choice. And that sort of just got a habit, and also when I got a bit older, I was just used to having it like that. But then eventually one of my teachers recommended me to change it. And personally, I would say that was a good idea, because if you have a rounder grip, then you have more of the fingertip itself on the tone hole. And you have, in my opinion, a better control, especially also, for example, with half-hold techniques, stuff like that. And it's easier also to do, for example, glissando stuff. So I did this one video where I played Gershwin, the solo there, and the Rhapsody. And to do this kind of glisses and crazy stuff like that is easier with a round grip. At least in my personal opinion. But like I said, there are cons and pros with both of them. But personally, I would recommend to have it round if your fingers are long enough for that. It also has a little bit to do with actually how far your finger travels. Because if you have a flat grip, it's quite easy to start to go quite far away. In comparison, if you have a round grip, it's, at least in my experience, it's more challenging to make a bigger movement. In other words, you are a bit closer to the keys. At least that's how it feels for me. The next question is actually a little bit on the same topic. It was regarding this glissando that I posted on my last YouTube video here. And they were asking if I will actually show how I did that. And there were very many things that went into that. One thing was what I showed just now with the fingers. So you actually sort of remove the fingers gradually from the tone holes. So I will try to show this on the camera. It probably won't work very well, but let's say I would start on the A, for example, right? And you would go, and you just take it off like that. That's one way to do it. Another way is to actually gradually remove one finger like that, like a technical exercise. It's more difficult though, but when you get to control it, the glissando can get even smoother. Of course, at some point in the scale, you will realize that there is a register change here. At F, you will then need to go from open grip to full grip. So to actually do a glissando from F to G is very tricky. And then all your fingers actually need to synchronize on that. So how I practiced that solo was basically to think sections within the glissando itself. And if you're quite picky about how that glissando sounded, you can hear where my reference points are. So feel free to do some research on that if you can find out where that was. And other things that I used in there was, I also was bending some pitches. That was mostly done with the lip and with the air pressure. And in fun fact, on the very last note, I decided also to actually do a jaw vibrato. Not classical at all, but I mean, suited the character. So that was how I did that. If you have any further questions about these kind of effects, just let me know and I will get to them when I have the time. Next up now is another totally hopeless and useless effect. This one we call the KORsakov effect, and it's a reed effect that you can do. Long story short, while I was studying in Mannheim, I was trying to learn double tongue by playing double tongue on the reed. Personally, I was not very good at that, especially in the start, so I managed to crack the note all the time. You know, so it sounded something like something like that. It didn't work, and it's basically because my tongue was just moving poorly. It didn't do the right thing. But then eventually later, when I learned double tongue, I was still able to actually control that effect. So back in Mannheim in the day, we had some fun with that, and we made it the KORsakov effect, because then you can play the trumpet solo from Scheherazade. Extremely useful. So now you know. And one last thing before I go, I remember we were talking a little bit about with some people here, what would happen if you add this really weird tenor joint that I did all the experiments on with the tone holes. If you use that tenor joint, which eventually ended up being way too flat, and you add a high note bocal while you play on that tenor joint. Because a high note bocal is normally a bit too sharp, and that tenor joint is a bit too flat. So would they compensate and sort of meet in the middle? Would it be in tune then? If that's the case, then theoretically you could have a tenor joint with tone holes all the way up to a high A. So let's see, let's find out. Okay, so now that crazy wing joint is back on here, as you can see, there is no keys on this. So I have covered all the extra tone holes with tape. Of course, not very good. So there might be some leaks, and it will not be 100% the same as if there were professional key work on this. But just let's see now, do they compensate each other out? I don't know, is that flat or is it? It's flat there. Oh wow, yeah. So some notes are not just flat, but everything is just different in general. Like some notes are way off. Like the F is everywhere. Even the tuner can basically just show a question mark. It has no clue. So yeah, no, I wouldn't say it evens each other out. If anything, it's just more confusing to play on this tenor joint with a high note vocal. So not a good idea to go up to A. Here's another question that I saw regarding actually the whisper key pad up here. As you maybe can see, that's a pretty weird looking one. And the reason for that is actually I asked for it to be that way. It's twice as wide as normal a normal pad. So of course a normal pad would be this side, and we basically just added that here as well. The idea it was from especially I think more in Scandinavia maybe, when you sit in the orchestra sometimes you have these adjustable chairs and you can go into this kind of like a some kind of ear protection that is behind here, that you can move into that. And sometimes that can change a bit the position of the instrument and stuff like that. So especially since I was then actually using a peg under the bassoon to hold the bassoon in place. So it was standing on the floor. So then I would actually adjust the vocal quite a lot to the sides to make that work out. So the idea was that this big pad would then cover all the time, which it doesn't. So it's basically a fail attempt. So at some point I will remove that. It was one of the experiments that didn't work because what I needed to realize was the fact that when you push this key down, is that of course on this side here everything works fine, but on the other side it opens the wrong way, you know. So when you then push down the key, then it actually opens on that side, and when you do the opposite happens. So it didn't really have the function as I was hoping for. So basically a failed experiment right there. For those of you who doesn't know regarding that peg I just mentioned, there was something was actually I think invented by William Waterhouse, I believe, to have it under the bassoon like this, and basically it's just resting on your leg, and it's quite stable there actually. I mean, I don't even need to hold it, and yeah, your hands are of course completely free to do whatever you want to do, and also there is no back pain because you don't have to lift anything. The bassoon comes to you, you don't go to the instrument. So in one way, quite a genius thing. Maybe especially good if you're playing, you know, the longest opera in the world and stuff like that. Very long pieces, it can for sure relieve some pain. Personally, I don't use it much anymore. I'm just more used to the Sabatini now and the feel of that. But yeah, maybe if I would, need to play the entire Ring cycle by Wagner or something, then maybe I would consider to use something like that, because it removes a lot of weight for sure, and it requires absolutely nothing. And what you can do is also, of course, you can adjust it, how long you need it to be and stuff like that, and you can turn it in all different ways around and blah blah blah. So that is what that peg is doing. So I just wanted to show that. Okay, I guess that was enough weird stuff for one day, but thank you so much for the questions and for motivating me to finally post some of those really weird effects that no one will ever need. Now we know where they are in case you want to show them to someone, so here we go. Okay, so see you next time.